I had the illusion that we were free thinkers, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I was raised in a cult.
I think they're Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yes!
We're very close now to smoking out Osama bin Laden. They got 1,600 Marines there in Afghanistan, and they're going cave to cave. And these Marines, they are very shrewd. They're disguising themselves as Jehovah's Witnesses.
A lot of people don't know much about Jehovah's Witnesses and often get them confused with Mormons with white shirts and helmets on bikes. Because of their religious beliefs regarding blood transfusions, many Jehovah's Witnesses will refuse them, even on their deathbeds. There's a long-standing history of the medical establishment forcing blood transfusions upon Jehovah's Witnesses against their will. In response to this, Jehovah's Witnesses have been at the forefront of research in finding a way to avoid blood transfusions with new technologies and procedures.
The lessons we learned in the early stages of bloodless medicine and surgery with the Jehovah's Witness clearly translated over to all of the rest of our patients. So the field now really of blood conservation includes the use of multiple alternatives in a planned way to avoid the need to transfuse a patient with someone else's blood.
They've won many court cases focusing on informed consent and medical freedom. There are over 8.6 million Jehovah's Witnesses in the world, spanning over 239 countries. In the 1880s, an avid Bible reader named Charles Russell formed what was known at the time as the Bible Students. His initial intention was bringing together Christians of all kinds. He didn't believe in labels like being called a Baptist or a Catholic. He believed in helping people become Bible readers, that they read the Bible, that they understood the Bible, and that they shared what the Bible had to say with other people. In the book Crisis of Conscience, a former governing body member of Jehovah's Witnesses tells a first-hand account of how their religion progressively became the intensely devoted, uniform group we see now. As a sect of Christianity, Jehovah's Witnesses reject any teaching that isn't strictly in the Bible, like blood transfusions or holidays. My entire life, I missed out on birthday parties, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, any of the holidays that American people traditionally celebrated. My earliest memories are going door to door and preaching to people about the good news, how the end was near, and if you followed this list of rules and joined our church, you could have everlasting life. Like many Jehovah's Witnesses, I was homeschooled. When I finally went to public school at 11 years old, I remember going up to the front of the classroom and talking to my teacher about how I wouldn't be able to say the Pledge of Allegiance. The fear I felt when all my classmates were staring at me with my hands by my side, while theirs were on their heart. I was taught that we were separate from the rest of the world. Jehovah's Witnesses believe that they are the only ones that will survive the Great Tribulation, or Armageddon. They literally label the rest of the world as worldly. We had a special knowledge that we were different than the rest. Being raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, I had the illusion that we were free thinkers, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I was raised in a cult. You see, this organization was known as a highly controlled organization, and many people call it a cult, and it's disputed whether or not that's the proper term. I started seeing through the cracks as I got older. My older sister and I were studying the Bible with a member of the congregation. When my sister told her that she was going to pursue higher education and go to college, the member ended the Bible study with both of us because higher education is highly discouraged.
Higher education often instills a sense of superiority and self-reliance that is in direct opposition to the Christian personality. The most intelligent and eloquent professors will be trying to reshape the thinking of your child, and their influence can be tremendous. It requires faith to decline higher education and have the confidence that our material needs will be cared for by training in other fields.
Jehovah's Witnesses quite literally shun someone if they have any form of misconduct that violates what it means to be a Jehovah's Witness.
Because I didn't have a hatred for what's bad, I couldn't see anything wrong with my choices. This eventually led me to do things I later regretted. I ended up getting disfellowshipped.
Sonia Erickson has been disfellowshipped.
It crushed my whole family.
It is announced publicly in front of the congregation if someone is disfellowshipped. When you are baptized, it is a seal on your contract with the Jehovah's Witnesses, and you can only come back through a very special process. For years, I never spoke to my grandmother because she was disfellowshipped. She wasn't allowed to come to our house to speak to us. We were not meant to have any association with her whatsoever, unless if it was sharing publications from the Jehovah's Witnesses. Around 16 years old, I stopped attending Jehovah's Witness meetings. My story isn't like most people who leave the Jehovah's Witnesses. Disfellowshipping has harsh consequences. But because I was never baptized, I was still able to maintain my relationship with most of my family members in the organization. That is, until COVID hit. I watched what I thought to be millions of independent thinkers lining up to get their vaccines, wearing masks, staying home. A group that was always unified became more unified through manipulation tactics and propaganda.
From the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses, this is JW Broadcasting.
This is JW Broadcasting.
JW Broadcasting.
The COVID-19 pandemic.
COVID-19.
The coronavirus pandemic has taken a grim toll around the world.
In some parts of the world, the coronavirus is beginning to spread more quickly.
This global pandemic has thrown the world into a state of uncertainty.
On a global scale, it was unlike anything Jehovah's people had yet experienced in the 21st century.
Everyday life for many of us has been disrupted in ways we might never have imagined.
Highly contagious variants are spreading and the pandemic is raging like never before. As Jehovah's Witnesses, we do not have a religious objection to vaccination. We're happy to report that about 50% of the worldwide Bethel family have been vaccinated so far. Here in the United States, more than 98% of our Bethel family have chosen to get vaccinated. In harmony with those government regulations,
the authorities,
government superior authorities,
medical and government authorities regarding steps that can be taken to prevent the spread of the virus.
A religion that promoted medical freedom over mandated medical treatments was suddenly coercing its members into following all government regulations for a different medical treatment. I spoke with people on the fence, those who had already left, and those who are still in the organization, to try and find out what was going on.
The organization was meeting on Zoom electronically for our meeting.
They said on the news it was like the 2 weeks to flatten the curve or whatever.
Totally no contact.
And of course they kept telling us and stressing over and over about wearing masks whenever we go out.
We're just sitting back shocked. I can't believe it. Things became very impersonal.
These sisters, they weren't really educated enough in trying to learn how to use their devices. And one night said something about going over. They were just trying, more or less telling us, you're just off limits.
I felt separated from the congregation, even because, oh no, you can't come here if you don't wear a mask.
Because of the long-standing history of shunning people who go against the grain, one could immediately see how this could be taken advantage of during a pandemic.
Some among us have very close family members or friends who have left the truth and are now disfellowshipped, and that's painful.
Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses are labeled as apostates, and associating with them is seen as dangerous. Any outsider information is part of Satan's world.
We must reject the voice of strangers.
I tried to tell her about the dangers of the vaccine. She just told me that the only news that she was going to refer to was what was on jw.org, even though I was telling her where she could go and find the information about how these vaccinations are affecting people. But she just shook her head like, we are not socializing with you at this time until you change your attitude about Jehovah's earthly organization and representatives and stop your open and unrestrained association with the fellowship one.
For a Jehovah's Witness to listen to what I'm saying right now would be considered a sin.
Satan continues his work as an evil ventriloquist using not serpents, but human puppets to enunciate his voice, these acting as his agents, either wittingly or unwittingly. But what does the voice of strangers say on this subject? Don't trust the faithful slave. He will mislead you. And who often have the loudest voice promoting this false message? Apostates.
that if they ever listen to the words of apostates, they will not receive everlasting life.
If we're deceived into accepting the counterfeit words of apostates, we'll lose our life.
It just shows you the strong influence that they have over them and how they can manipulate your thinking and into doing things.
In truth, a great darkness surrounds Jehovah's Witnesses, and many of them are manipulated, lied to, and highly controlled.
What on earth can bring that kind of fear?
And the root of all of it is an entity that has become more and more prominent since the founding of the Jehovah's Witnesses: the governing body.
The governing body. The governing body.
Governing body. The governing body.
The governing body.
Whether the direction we receive comes from the governing body, the branch, our circuit overseer, or the elders, we want to follow that direction closely.
At the top, you have the governing body, and below that, the circuit and district overseers, and then the elders of the individual congregations. The circuit overseer, the district overseer, and the elders bring about the will of the governing body.
We see clearly how the direction that we've received over the years indicates that Jehovah's clearly with his people, with his organization, with the governing body, those who are taking the lead. Why would we question the direction we're getting now?
It is believed that this group of men are chosen by God to bring about his will on earth.
We want to follow that direction closely. It's good practice as we head into even more turbulent times ahead.
Their doctrine is apocalyptic based, that the end is near and Armageddon is coming tomorrow, driving fear into their members and achieving high control.
We're living in the last days of this system of things.
These last days,
the Great Tribulation, that we're living in the final part of the last days, undoubtedly the final part of the final part of the last days, shortly before the last day of the last days.
In other words, you won't be receiving everlasting life if you don't listen to the governing body, which is truly treated the same as the Word of God. Fear is used to close off entire communities of people. In fact, they only resumed their in-person meetings as of April 2022.
So we just started meeting back in person again back in April.
Since April, I've been going back. I've been going back to the meetings, and my wife and I, we just wear our mask.
Everybody is still strongly encouraged to wear masks in the Kingdom Hall. It's not mandatory, but we do strongly encourage all of the brothers and sisters to wear masks.
That's what the majority do, almost all of them. There might be one or two, maybe babies don't, put on a mask, but everybody else, for right now, they're putting on masks.
95% of the friends are still wearing masks. Very, very high percentage. The vast majority of the organization is vaccinated, and many are boosted too. It's not mandatory, but it was highly encouraged by the organization that if somebody could get vaccinated, they recommended it.
Last year they were recommended.
Just because of how much safety and immunity it brought with it. They had such good results from the vaccinations that they were really encouraging vaccination.
Some people have immune systems that even the vaccine would be harmful, so they decide not to. So we leave that up to them. That's for you to decide. That's your personal business.
My intention and my hope here is to start the conversation. Jehovah's Witnesses are so closed off from the outside world that no one even knew this was going on.
Do you think that people are getting the vaccine because of the social pressure of the thought of maybe being disfellowshipped for that?
They're not saying you have to get this, and yes, God wants you to get. They're not saying that, but that's what's coming across.
I just got a message from a friend, and he told me his brother got this fellowship because he was talking against it.
During World War II, we had brothers and sisters that died in concentration camps because they would not compromise their belief. They were told to go out door to door. They were told to, keep preaching, not to stop worshiping God. And they lost their lives over it. And we're supposed to cower at home? So I have a real problem with that. The whole premise of Jehovah's Witnesses is that we're not supposed to follow the world governments, only God's government. And then all of a sudden during COVID, we're supposed to blindly follow these government agencies that are supposedly being led by Satan. I was disfellowshipped after 24 years on Zoom, on a phone call, and it was because I had rocked the boat, because I just didn't wholeheartedly say, okay, I'm going to do this for Christian unity, or, to go along with the faithful and discreet slave. I had an opinion, and I had things that contradicted their narrative, and that is not to be allowed.
I mean, that's pretty strong, to be disfellowshipped because they speak out against it, or they question it, even if they question it.
Not complying with the governing body recommendations meant endangering the congregation, and in some cases resulted in disfellowshipping.
When the COVID-19 pandemic struck in 2020, we all received direction, including new ways to attend our meetings and carry out our ministry, and ways to comply with the secular authorities. Did you disagree? Or did you have a different idea? If so, did you follow the direction anyway and give it your support? If you did, then you contributed to our unity.
In the name of unity, Jehovah's Witnesses were coerced into following lockdown procedures and receiving the experimental injections.
We cannot afford to care more about our privileges, our pride, or our opinions than we do about Christian unity. If we put our own wants first, we place the congregation's unity in plain view for Satan to snatch.
Anything to get someone from the outside world into the Kingdom Hall, but once converted, they must follow every rule.
We just want you to come and attend. We want you to be there. That's what's most important.
From my personal experience, many Jehovah's Witnesses have good intentions, and it's a true tragedy that many of them are misled.
Well, that's really helpful, because, like I said, I was just trying to figure out what the vibe was.
No, the vibe is whatever it takes to get you to the Kingdom Hall so you can get fellowship and you can learn and you can be comfortable and safe. That's the vibe. That's all we're interested in.
Yeah, if you felt comfortable, we'd love to have you attend either one of those meetings, whatever works out best for your schedule. But if you have any other questions, this is my cell phone that I called from, so just feel free to reach out or text her if you need anything else.
As for those who are misleading them, however, I cannot say the same of their intentions.
If we say we love Jesus, and we're not like Christendom with this proclamation of their love for Jesus, they really don't even know the real Jesus, frankly, till you get an accurate knowledge of the truth. But if we're in the truth, we're dedicated, baptized servants of Him, if we really love Him, we're going to observe His word. Now that means not just carrying out the kingdom, putting our time and energy into it, it also means money.
In delving through every piece of information I could get my hand on, in searching for conflicts of interest and financial incentives, the intricate maze of corporations and nonprofits of the Jehovah's Witnesses ended up being a fruitless endeavor. It is unclear why a religion formerly devoted to medical freedom transformed into a vessel of vaccine coercion. The motive behind this push is still a mystery to be uncovered.